gears a little bit to another one of our caucuses. The Progressive Caucus is currently being led, organized by Kelsey McLandon from the Stuttgart area.
Okay. Turn this up a little bit. All right, can you hear me okay? Yeah?
I see you too.
You see me too? Yes, that's because I got my boots on. All right, whew. Thank you for that presentation. My heart's going a little bit faster right now still. I don't know how you guys are feeling. But yeah, so I'm so inspired by what we've heard so far from other caucuses. And I'm really passionate about the Progressive Caucus because I feel like the Progressive Caucus is often a place where the voices that are represented in our other caucuses tend to overlap a lot. And so I'll talk about that in just a little bit. So, a lot of people ask me, what is the Progressive Caucus? And why do we still need a Progressive Caucus? Isn't Democrats abroad already, in particular, rather progressive? And I think, yeah, that's often very true, but I also think that Progressive Caucus is more necessary than ever, honestly. And so for those of you who aren't quite sure what we mean when we say Progressive Caucus, or what we mean when we say we unite behind a certain progressive ideology, this is just one way of thinking about what it means to be part of a progressive community. So this is a statement that I helped put together for the Global Progressive Caucus. So the Progressive Caucus of Democrats Abroad works proactively to transform the United States into a society rooted in economic fairness, as well as social, racial, and environmental justice, particularly for the most vulnerable among us. We seek increased inclusion, fairness, accountability, and transparency in our domestic political processes. We support international cooperation, mutual respect, and peaceful methods of conflict resolution. And so that, in a nutshell, is exactly what it means to be progressive. We fight so that our Democratic Party is always rooted in an ideology of inclusion, fairness, accountability, and transparency. And to that end, we have some specific policy points that, as progressives, we tend to fight really hard for. And some of those policy points are Medicare for all, debt-free college, a livable minimum wage, Green New Deal, ending mass incarceration and police brutality, and common sense gun legislation, and humane immigration practices and honoring the right to asylum, and fundamental campaign finance reform. We want to make sure that voters are who's controlling the political system, not the wealthiest 1%, not lobbyists. And increased inclusion, fairness, accountability, transparency. As I said, about international cooperation, but also this last point I'm going to focus on quite a bit, in continued introspection and transformation as our ideals and our goals evolve. So why do we have a Progressive Caucus? We have a Progressive Caucus because we always need a core group of people asking, what could we be doing better? Who are we leaving behind? Not intentionally, perhaps we didn't realize we're leaving people behind. I think Democrats at our core are very well intentioned. We're always trying to do what's best. And sometimes when we're leading with that good intention, we accidentally overlook members of our community. And so the Progressive Caucus is committed to making sure that we're always asking ourselves, we're always having a self-critical lens through which we're looking at ourselves and asking, who are we accidentally leaving behind? And how can we fix that? What can we do better? And I think one example of what I said earlier about the way in which different voices within different communities within Democrats Abroad can overlap in the Progressive Caucus. I think one great example of that that's probably quite popular for those of us in the room is the Green New Deal. And people love the Green New Deal, and I think perhaps the first thing that they know about the Green New Deal is that it is a proposal to fight climate change. But I think the most important piece of the Green New Deal is that it focuses on fighting climate change with particular attention to social justice. because we know that not only is climate change an issue, but climate change disproportionately impacts certain communities. It impacts women more, it impacts people of color, and it impacts poor communities. And also, as we move ahead to fight climate change, we cannot leave workers behind. We cannot leave the working class behind. And so the Progressive Caucus is a place where those communities can overlap, and we take that overlap, that intersection, and we turn it into policy. So people often also ask, well, what about 2016? There's a lot of conflict in 2016 between more progressive voices and more members of the Democratic community who have been part of the Democratic community for a long time. There was some tension. And as a result of that tension, a lot of people were feeling taken for granted, and a lot of people were feeling left behind or not listened to. And I think the Progressive Caucus is also a place to hear that and listen to it and empathize with it, but also say, we need your feedback, we need your voices to help us make it right this time, to help us be better, to help us evolve. It's so important that we keep people coming back, even though we maybe have frustrated them in the past. Those frustrated voices are helping us make things right this time and making sure that we go into 2020 as strong as we possibly can be as a community of Democrats. And so to that end, the Progressive Caucus has specifically created this dedication to the Democrats Abroad community. We are firmly 100% part of the Democrats community. We are not separate as progressives, we are progressive Democrats. And so what we're going to be working for is continuing to be part of the Democratic community, but also continuing to ask that question. Maybe it gets annoying sometimes, but we're always going to be asking that question, what is it that we can be doing better? How can we improve? Where are we falling short? What are the gaps? And let's work together to fix it. We also have this uniting principle. This principle relates both to the Democratic community itself, but also to our international community. All of us are sitting in this space right now as people who live outside of the United States. And so not only are we part of our American communities, we're part of our home country, but we're also part of our communities abroad. We exist in 2 different spaces, maybe even more, depending on how many different residences you have. And so we need to focus not only on the ways in which we can be good Americans for our own American community, but also how we can be good global citizens. Okay, so why do we vote? Why do we continue to vote with the Democratic Party? And for 3 reasons, primarily. The first is to be part of the message. If you want to take a firm stand in shaping the Democratic message going into 2020, you need to participate in the primary, you need to participate in the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party is listening. If you've been paying attention to the changes that have happened since 2016, we've had the Unity Reform Commission, which has fundamentally changed the way that the delegate selection process works. We've also changed our Democrats Abroad platform to reflect those changes. So we have this very much an environment founded on listening to what we're doing now. And so if you want to be part of that message, we need to participate. It also widens our reach. So we know that younger people tend to fall more on the progressive end of the political spectrum, and the Progressive Caucus is a space, it's an entry point, a comfortable entry point for which they can get involved in the Democratic Party. And so we want to bring them in. We also want to reach independent voters, people who may not be comfortable with either of the primary political parties in the United States, but because we're doing these new and interesting things, because we're focusing so much on listening and having a variety of voices within the Progressive Caucus, we have the potential to bring those voters into the Democratic Party in the way that we know the Republican Party is not reaching them. And finally, to push for meaningful change. If you really honestly want to have a shot at making meaningful change in the United States, you need to vote Democrat. There is no other option. And so if you want to be part of that change, if you want to be part of the movement that is not only going to get Trump out of office in 2020, but make the United States a country that you're proud to be a member of, then you need to be part of the process. You need to be part Democrat, and you need to help us make it better. So we have a say, and we have voices, and we need to use them together. So how can you be part of it? There are many different ways for you to join the Progressive Caucus. We obviously are very much focused on grassroots movement, so we encourage you to get involved at the local level, at your chapter level. If you are interested in progressive activity in your chapter, we encourage you to do that. Organize postcard writing events in favor of universal health care. You can talk to people about Green New Deal policy and climate change. You can write letters to the editor in your hometown newspapers talking about how amazing universal health care is. There are many different ways that you can get involved that don't necessarily require you to leave your hometown or your home chapter. You also have the opportunity to get involved at the leadership level. So I have been running the Progressive Caucus sort of at the Germany-wide level, but I'm a woman of many different hats in this community, and so I really need some help. So if you are willing to step up and be part of our national leadership, I would really appreciate that. So you can get in touch with me and I'll let you know how to do it. And then finally, we also encourage you to take part in campaigns. So of course, we don't endorse any primary candidates as part of Democrats Abroad, but we do encourage our members to be politically informed and active and to make the right choice for you, and also volunteer with campaigns. Get active, get involved. And to that end, I will end with one thing. We all are very, I think, excited about the primary candidates. Even if we haven't made up a decision yet about which primary candidate we are going to support, if you have already made that choice and you're going to do a lot of volunteer work, you're going to do canvassing, you're going to phone bank, whatever it is that you're willing to do for your primary candidate, make the commitment now to do at least that for the federal election.
Yes,
Yeah? And then finally, this is how you find us on the internet. So if you want to connect with us on Facebook, we are ProDA, and that's the email address for the global level Progressive Caucus. The co-chairs' names are Sue and Gordon. Sue's in Canada, and Gordon is in Tokyo. And then if you want to join the Progressive Caucus on the Democrats Abroad website, it is democratsabroad.org/PC. All right, so I look forward to seeing all of our new members. Talk to me about getting involved, and let's do it, yeah?